Hello, my friends. How are you? And I'm back here today to continue our conversations and in our mutual desire to understand reality, to understand ourselves, to understand each other, to understand the world, to understand the universe, to understand life and death, or birth and death, and life beyond birth and death. So I'm grateful to you as usual for allowing me to share some ideas with you. Hello Salonga, good morning. Hello Anna, good morning. Hello Dominique, good morning. So I'm grateful to you that you give me this opportunity to share these reflections every day with you. And your feedback has been very important to me, and so has any criticism. So just letting you know, I'm not offended by criticism. I am not personally offended by criticism. If I was, then I would be offended for the rest of my life, because I'm subject to a lot of criticism and vilification and all of that. So even if you send me critical comments, that actually ultimately helps me. So today I'm going to use logic and rationality to hopefully convince you that logic and rationality are not the path to the truth about existence and the truth about reality. By reality, I do mean existence, which means anything and everything that exists. So I am, as I said, paradoxically going to be using logic to show you the futility of logic. I'm going to share rationality to show you the futility of rationality, not in navigating the experience of the world, but in understanding existence, understanding reality. Let's start with the first notion that we use in science. And by the way, science as we practice it today is, hi Angie, good morning, you'll be posting this soon everywhere. So science, which is our latest model of reality, is very useful. It is because of science that and technology that I'm able to communicate with you right now. And we can share the same perceptual space and even the same mental space, because what we are doing right now is creating a shared experience through the intersection of electromagnetic fields, the model that we call electromagnetic fields. And these intersections of electromagnetic fields are in turn the intersection of probability waves in so-called mathematical space, Hilbert space. So this scientific model is very useful right now for us to share both mental and perceptual space. And we should not discount this or diminish the importance of the scientific method. However, we are not talking about the scientific method which is proven to create the best scientific technology, divine and diabolical, including atom bombs and nuclear weapons and biological warfare, so we won't go there. But it also is useful for creating the technologies that make today's life possible, flying on airplanes and sending intergalactic probes to the surface of Mars and exploring reality as we perceive it. Hello, Aurora. Good to have you here. So do not discount the scientific method for navigating everyday experience. Do not discount the scientific method for creating both useful and diabolical technologies, for creating a better world, but also risking our extinction. It's all up to us. Let's not discount the scientific method and scientific constructs, but let's go a little deeper in seeing what is science, first of all. Science is a methodology. It uses empirical evidence, what we call empirical facts. It uses logic. Scientific method conceives of experiments and comes up with theories that are useful, although the history of science is the falsification of all previous theories. So it's an evolving, always evolving story. Science is an always evolving story. But current science is based on a few constructs that I think we should be aware of. As my friend Don Hoffman has said, every science and every philosophy and every system of thought begins with an assumption. And he says the assumption is the first miracle. So the scientific method begins with the assumption that the world is physical and material, and it also begins with the assumption that we are physical bodies with minds. This is the first miracle, that there is matter. Now, of course, we do not know the deeper nature of matter at the most fundamental level. That's the quantum mechanics is exploring that model of reality. Just remember, quantum mechanics is a system of calculations, and it is not a philosophy. The interpretations of quantum mechanics fall in the realm of the philosophy of science. But quantum mechanics basically is a recipe for doing calculations that are very accurate in predicting the results of experiments. So that's what science does. It predicts the results of experiments until there is an experiment that falsifies the theory. But it does begin with an assumption, which is a miracle. What is the miracle? That there is the existence of matter. Now, as we'll see, this is an assumption, therefore it's a miracle. And that's where we start. So that's the first premise of science. The physical world is real. The second premise of science is what we call naive realism. And naive realism, again, for those of you who haven't kept up with these conversations, has two fundamental assumptions, two fundamental miracles. One is that the physical world exists exactly as perceived within the narrow band of human perceptual activity. So the physical world exists exactly as experienced within the narrow band of human perceptual activity. That's the first assumption of naive realism, which is obviously not true because, yes, Dean Kelly, these are ontological assumptions. Very good. Okay, so let's say, going back to the definition of naive realism, the physical world exists exactly as perceived by the five human senses. within the narrow band of human perceptual activity and the extension of the narrow band through technology. So technology allows us to expand our range of experience to infrared and ultrasound and all of that. But still, with the basic assumption that the physical world, material world, is exactly as perceived by the human senses. This is obviously wrong because other species of consciousness have a completely different perceptual experience. Most of it we are not privy to. It's outside the boundaries of our awareness, or should I say conscious awareness. It's outside the boundaries of our conscious awareness. So the first assumption of naive realism seems to be inaccurate. The second assumption of naive realism is that the physical world as experienced by the five human senses, and just by the five human senses, not the senses of other sentient beings or species of consciousness. The second assumption is that the physical world would exist exactly as perceived by the human senses, even in the absence of human experience, which is also not logical. I'm using logic right now to share with you the fact that both the assumptions of naive realism are not logical. If there is a reality outside human awareness, and we know there is, because we also know that other species experience different realities. But if there is a reality that is totally outside of all awareness, then it is not accessible to us. So it doesn't exist as far as we are concerned. You can see that both assumptions of naive realism are in fact human constructs that help us navigate experience of what we call everyday reality. It is good that the senses lie to us. My senses tell me that the earth is flat, and that's very convenient. I can now walk. If the earth was curved and I perceived it as that, it'd be pretty hard to walk, because walking assumes that usually the ground is flat. Also, our senses lie to us when they tell us that the ground you're standing on is stationary, and we know it's spinning at dizzying speeds and hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour. So thank God we're not experiencing that, because if we did, we'd go dizzy and we wouldn't be able to stand and we wouldn't survive. So the fact that our senses lie to us is very convenient, isn't it, for our physical experience of what we call physical experience or material reality. Similarly, there are many assumptions that we make for everyday experience. The world is full of objects, it is solid, objects are separated from each other in space and time, and on and on. They follow the laws of motion, and so many things that science tells us about the objective, so-called objective world, which is actually an intersubjective agreement on our interpretations of perceptual activity. Nevertheless, since our senses deceive us, they're also making it convenient for our body to function in what we call the physical world. Our physical body, what we call the physical body, to function in a physical world. And science relies on something which is very fundamental, empirical evidence or empirical facts. But what are empirical facts? Empirical facts are snapshots of perceptual activity interpreted by human beings or human consciousness. And these are what we rely on. Every empirical fact is a snapshot of human observation. Just human observation, not the observation of any other species. Okay, so empirical facts. And so why are they confirmed by others? Well, they're confirmed by others because they're using the same mode of observation, the same human nervous system, and the same interpretations of that human mode of observation. So empirical facts are a species-specific experience, a species-specific mode of knowing and experience that is in human consciousness only. And that can be confirmed. You know, we do the same experiment, use the same methodology, ask the same questions, and we get a sliver of reality, which we call empirical fact. And then we build up on these, we create science, and then the science works, so we assume that's reality. And it's an amazing construction, this amazing story that we call science, that helps us navigate everyday reality and also create the technologies that make it useful to communicate and move and conduct ourselves in today's world. However, what we are exploring here is a deeper truth, and what is the real reality, not the everyday experience of reality. And I'm saying that this is not possible through logic, through human logic, through human rationality, and through the collection of empirical facts. It's not possible. And I told you why. So are there other modes of knowing than rational thought? And obviously there are, okay? Just being is a mode of knowing. Just being is a mode of knowing. In fact, it's the highest form of knowing. That's why Rumi, the great Sufi poet, said, God's language is silence, everything else is poor translation. This is what we're attempting right now, the poor translation. Okay, if God's language is silence, then for practical purposes, the best thing I can do is shut up, which means I'm not going to do these engagements with you anymore. I should just shut up. But actually, I'm not ready to shut up. I'm still wanting to communicate my deeper knowings with you, share them with you, and for you to communicate them with me. Be that as it may, all deeper knowing comes from just being. Just from being. Because at the level of being, there is something called non-local correlation in consciousness. Non-local correlation means inseparability. So the experience of stillness gives us the experience of non-local correlation, which is infinite correlation. My friend Larry Dossey says this correlation is unmediated, which means this inseparability of existence and experience is unmediated. There is no energy that mediates this correlation. So Larry Dossey says it's unmediated. It's unmitigated. Unmitigated means that the robustness of the correlation does not diminish with distance in space or time, that the correlation exists and pervades all of space-time, which means everything is inseparable, not interconnected, not interweaving, but inseparable. You and I and the universe are inseparable. This is called non-duality in Eastern traditions. But of course, Western science and Western philosophy, for the most part, are based on duality. Duality means me and everything else, you and everything else, instead of non-duality, which means it's all one non-local reality. So non-local correlation is unmediated, unmitigated. Unmitigated means the robustness, the strength of the correlation does not diminish with distance in space and time. And third thing is it's instantaneous. The correlation happens instantaneously, which is faster than the speed of light, in violation of the theories of relativity, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. So, Deep Sarkar, this is actuality. You're asking the question, what is actuality? This is actuality, that everything is inseparable from everything else. Okay, that empirical fact that you observe is just a blip, a flicker, an excitation in the non-local experience of the world. And how do we experience this non-local world? Through the transcendence of thought, through the transcendence of rationality, actually through the transcendence of everything that we call everyday experience, transcendence of perceptual activity, transcendence of thought, transcendence of feeling and emotion, in that domain of non-local being, which is infinite, which is non-local, which is beyond all of space and time. This is the place of deepest knowing, the transcendence of everyday perceptual activity and its interpretation and even its feeling. The highest intelligence, cosmic intelligence. So that's the highest level of knowing. But as we move from there into the world of duality, or the experience of duality, then there's another mode of knowing that we have access to. It's called feeling. And feelings are present in every species as sensations, and rudimentary sensations, pleasure, pain, but they get refined and have many nuances in human experience. Okay, so we have feelings of joy, happiness, love, compassion, empathy, equanimity. We have feelings of hostility, anger, anxiety, guilt, humiliation, depression. This is the wide range of feelings. Actually, feelings, the nuances of feelings are almost infinite. So I would say that after being, feeling is the second intelligence and deeper than so-called rational thought. Blaise Pascal, the great philosopher, said, the heart has reasons that reason does not know. And when we trust the feelings that are generated in our heart, on our gut, in our stomach, in our viscera, as I mentioned before, that's called interoception. And interoception can lead to modes of knowing that are beyond rational thought. More contextual, more intuitive, more relational, more holistic, beyond win-lose orientation, beyond direct cause-effect logical relationships. Rosa Marie Mute says, how does one cure sadness? By going beyond sadness, by transcending sadness. Okay, so then let's say feelings, emotions are the second mode of knowing. Not as deep as being, but as feeling. They're very important, okay? Somebody just raised the question of love. Is love a feeling? Yes, love is a feeling, but love is actually beyond feelings as well. So love can be interpreted as a human experience that we have every day in relationship as sentiment and emotions, but true love is beyond that. It's the transcendence of even that. True love is the knowing, the experiential knowing of unity consciousness. To quote Rabindranath Tagore, love is not a mere sentiment or emotion, it's the ultimate truth at the heart of the universe. And what's the ultimate truth? Inseparably one. Non-local correlation. If you understand non-local correlation, and if you even understand some of the scientific constructs, then if you understand the scientific constructs in the latest science, you'll see that where quantum physicists are going these days, in the direction of quantum field theories, the quantum vacuum is essentially infinite, and even its modes of experience, or let's say its modes of manifestation of real particles from virtual particles, are actually all in the realm of the infinite, which mathematical logic uses, of course. Mathematical logic uses infinities and zero-point energy fields as very fundamental concepts that go beyond usual rational thought. You might be familiar with Gödel's theorem, or Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which says in any algorithm or series of theorems, there is always theorems that are illogical, that cannot be proved, but that are true in that they predict the results of experiments and observations. So even our current scientific constructs are hinting at a deeper reality. The quantum vacuum is the source of infinite energy, which would, in religious terms, or spiritual terms, we would call it omnipotence, infinite energy. Infinite correlation or knowing, which in spiritual terms we would call omniscience. Omniscience. Infinite modes of knowing. And then there's a third term that spiritual philosophers use, omnipresence, that the presence of being inhabits and informs every mode of knowing in every species of consciousness. Omnipotence is infinite energy. Omniscience is infinite modes of knowing. And omnipresence is the presence of being or awareness in every mode of knowing, in every species of consciousness. So science is leading us, at least scientific constructs are leading us into spiritual understanding also of deeper truth. So that's the second mode of knowing, feeling. The third mode of knowing is what we call the mind, logic, rationality, but also reflective inquiry. Because every mode of knowing is in fact an answer to a question. As Heisenberg said, and I'm not being literally saying his words, but more or less what he said, that nature does not reveal herself to us as she is, but to our modes of questioning. I would go beyond that. It's not nature revealing ourselves, it's us revealing ourselves to us. We don't ask questions of nature, we ask questions of ourselves. And then our expanded awareness designs these experiments and so on, that we can look for empirical facts that we then call reality. But our one flicker, one moment of experience in reality. Okay, so the third mode of knowing is what we call reflective inquiry, not dogmatic thought. And the fourth mode of knowing is to exchange ideas through speech, which we're doing right now. And then the final mode of knowing is actually looking at the world as we do, through the lens of human experience, where we create logic, rationality, etc., etc. So you see, there are innumerable, infinite modes of knowing that can lead to innumerable, infinite modes of experience. And when we realize this, and when we can transcend all experience, then we go beyond the margins of our bubble of experience, and we experience what many people call extrasensory perception, precognition, memories of other lifetimes. Basically, we can tap into realities which are beyond the usual perceptual modes of knowing. So remote viewing, precognition, prophecy, extrasensory perception, synesthesia. I mentioned remote viewing, but these are all remote healing. All these things are understandable when we go beyond the bubble of awareness in which we are squeezed. Marlene says, she says, psychic experiences, psi experiences. Yes, all of that is true. And all of that is accessible. Om Bansal says, can I leave my body at will? Well, you can leave your experience of your body at will by closing your eyes, feeling the sensations, and then transcending the sensations through meditation. And you will experience your formless being. I do it every day. And I know that my formless being is the only reality. Everything else is an excitation of that which we call mind, body, universe. Birth and death are excitations of fundamental formless being. Okay, so these are the methods, right? Self-inquiry, mindful awareness of mental space, mindful awareness of perceptual activity, mindful awareness of the body, interoception, pratyahara, various yogic practices, bandhas, kriyas, combined with dhyan, dharana, drishti. drishti means focused awareness or vision, we can pierce the mask of everyday reality and tap into the deepest aspects of our being. And when we do that, we transcend rational thought, empirical evidence. We find ourselves as beings that pervade all of space and time and exist prior and post any experience. We also have the awakening of divine emotions. The most divine of them is love. And then we experience the loss of the fear of death because we know that our transcendent self is not in space-time. So, respect facts and science and empirical evidence to navigate everyday experience, but go beyond it to know who you are and what is it that created a system of thought that we call science. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, and we'll stay in touch. Cheryl from Kolkata. Cheryl, have a wonderful day. Elvira, inner self. Vinod, I choose love. Valentina, how do you explain synesthesia? Yeah, synesthesia just shows you that all our senses are entangled. That you can taste numbers or see colors as numbers or experience any sense through any other sense. Some people have that natural ability and are born with that, but we can all train to do that. If you like, we will continue this journey. Thank you so much and take care. Keep your feet on the ground, relying on your imperfect senses, but keep reaching for the stars.